First of all, we need to think about how can we make a real difference? You know, what can I do to really change that? Because we've been doing the same for many years, to be honest. A lot is on improving and automating IT operations, implementing ITSM. We are doing that also. We are implementing different ITSM solutions. ServiceNow is our key partner for us, and we've been implementing ServiceNow in the last 15 years, a long time ago. And we're still doing it because this is an important and key aspect of managing IT. We need a mature and the best platforms possible in the market to manage IT. So this is very important. But the thing that we've seen is, you know, you start implementing ITSM, then maybe you start automating more workflow, improve the maturity of the workflows. Then you add the omni-channels, portals, you integrate with Teams, with Slack, with Zoom. Then maybe you add the chatbots, AI. All this is very important. But there's a moment where the level of investment that you need to involve for a smaller increment make it very difficult to justify that, you know, keeping the same way, you know, because there's like a roof somewhere. The more money we spend at the beginning, we see a big increment in the value. But after a certain amount of time, you need a really large amount of money to make a small increment in the value, in the way you change that employee experience. Okay. Now we have a lot of customers that are looking at chatbots, AI, you know, connecting with Teams and Slack to really connect with people when they're working at home. And that's very good, and we need to keep doing that. But how can we really break that limit, that roof, right, and get another huge increase of value? And what we've seen, and that's why we work with Nexthink in combination with the ITSM, like ServiceNow, the decision to switch to a proactive mindset, that's the key component. It's not about technology, it's not about improving processes, it's really about people thinking, I need to change, I need to do something different. And that decision, obviously we can help you to get to that point where you decide that. That decision means that you can get to another level of value that you cannot do focusing only on the ITSM. You need to think beyond the ticket. Ticket is already reactive. When we register something in an ITSM platform, that's already reactive. That's the user already informed something, right? So we need to change to a proactive mindset. What are the challenges? Obviously, it's a good starting point, the investment of ITSM, and we are still doing it. And we are really pushing on that because it's very important. But then there's some level of, you know, there's a moment where improving and optimizing ITSM is not enough, as I said earlier. Relying on the traditional support model, level 1, level 2, level 3, is not enough. It has its limitations. Monitoring from IT perspective is not enough. That's just more about the watermelon effect. Looks like everything green, and then that's not the reality for the user, the employee. And measuring the satisfaction through surveys is not enough. We all know the percentage of answers to a survey is like 15, 20% if we are lucky. And also, you know, you answer a survey when you're not happy. Normally, it's very rare that someone answers a survey to say, very good, nice job. That happens sometimes, but it's not the most common situation, right? So all this is not enough to go to the next level and get more value for the employee experience. So basically, I would summarize it this way. You can be the best and the most optimized organization in the reactive area. You're the best reactive organization. But, you know, the idea is not to get the best reactive organization. It's say, how can I do it different to be the best organization for my employee? And we need to break that word with reactive. We need to think about proactive. We need to open our mind here to think different. And one of the analysis from different analysts, one of the KPIs or values or figures that we use to justify that is one of the most important one is only half of the issues are reported. So basically the employees, when they face an issue, just maybe 50% of the time they report that incident. So you have a ticket. What about the other 50% that they never reported? I'm sure we all face that. We have an issue and we just say, okay, we cannot do that. I will go and do something else. Or maybe I even forget to report it, or I'm tired to create ticket, So half of the tickets are not reported, but they're still facing issues, So they are like suffering in silent mode, right? Not saying anything to anyone. So the idea of proactivity is to really see the reality. So see the 100% of what's going on, not only what has been reported as a ticket. And a ticket is already reactive because we are not supporting the user before they face the issue. We are supporting the user when they're already facing the issue. There are also 2 interruptions per week, means that twice a week, I need to stop doing something I was doing and do something else maybe, because an issue on my workstation, application, network, anything related with my workplace, which relate to like 28 minutes lost per interruption. Okay, so if you multiply 28 minutes per employee, you can think about translating it into money or into things that you are not doing. It's not only what you save, it's what you're not doing while you are losing those minutes. Maybe you should, invest those minutes on new projects, delivering new services to the employees or any other activity that's more value than just sitting in front of the computer, not able to do what you need to do, okay? So those figures are very important to justify why we need to be more proactive, because we are not even seeing the reality. We are seeing like half the reality if we only look at tickets in an ITSM solution. 3 steps to change. There are only 3 steps we need to do to change the way we work from reactive to proactive. The first one is we need to build a new culture with a proactive mindset, people side of things. Even before we talk about technology, processes, upgrading, updating, implementing new features, that's good, but the first step is people. What does it mean creating a proactive mindset? First, we need to get the executive buy-in. So we need to really understand what's the value of the proactivity for the business. What does it mean? Okay, why should I measure the employee, the digital experience of the employees? Because obviously, to be able to improve something, I need to understand it first. We'll get to that point later on. So what's the value for the business? Why should I invest in proactivity? That sounds like a logic step, but the reality when we visit different organizations is we keep improving the reactive mode, but very few times I've seen really a big change in the mindset, and that's what we need to push here and sell internally to executive and get a sponsor for that initiative. We need to build a team. Basically, it's about reskilling or training or explaining what does it mean to be proactive. You need to change the way you work and think. You cannot think, no, raise me a ticket. No, that's too late, far too late, okay? So that's another mindset, another way of working that requires awareness, that requires training, organizational change, and many steps to convince and make sure you have all your team with you on that change. And then obviously you need to justify the upfront work. So obviously there's an investment initially to change the way you work. And you need to justify that then there's a long-term gain. That's the ROI of this initiative. Okay. That people side of things, it's very important, and how we do it basically is managing the internal selling as consultants. This is what we do with our customers, managing stakeholders, driving the organizational change in the adoption and the awareness of what we call a digital experience score. What is a digital experience score? It's the measurement of the experience of the employees. With the technology, Nexthink in this case that I will explain, we are able to score the experience of the employees, taking into account business applications scoring, device scoring, collaboration and productivity tool scoring, the sentiment of the employee. So it's not a hard metric in this case, more about sentiment. I'll explain a little bit how we do that. So all those scores give us an overall digital experience score that will drive our decisions. For example, you may be an organization, we do the scoring, you have a 7 out of 10 scoring for the digital experience for employee. You can drill down and understand from where we are calculating that score, and we can see maybe where we fail is more on the business application side and on the sentiment. So we can drill down and understand why we have a low score in the sentiment of the employee. That may be because, I don't know, they're missing some features that they need, or maybe the performance is not right and they feel that they will need better performance in their device, or maybe they need better performance with the network, or maybe they feel that their environment at home is not prepared to work from home, whatever, sentiment. But all those metrics could be sentiment and employee perspective, or could be hard metrics, something we can measure on the device directly. The combination gives us the score, okay? So that's how we can start also the journey with real figures and what's the reality of your employee experience at home or at the office. This is how we do that part. The second part is getting visibility into the entire IT estate. So what does it mean? Basically, we need to see across the entire landscape with the employee perspective, the watermelon effect that I mentioned earlier. If we are still looking at for IT perspective, application, the monitoring shows all green, infra all green, network all green, reality on the employee side, they are not happy. It's not working for them. So we need to be able to have the visibility from their perspective. Like if we put someone in front of their computer looking at what they see and see the same thing, right? Not from IT. The sentiment, as I mentioned, is very important, and you cannot measure the employee experience if you are not measuring the sentiment. Okay, it's not everything hard metric. It's not everything measurable with collectors or agents or things like that. One part is there with agents and collectors and technical measurements, but there's another big part about sentiment. Ask questions, get their feedback. Okay. The important is everything we measure, all those KPIs and metrics, sentiment, and everything we measure, that's also available from the ITSM platform. So it could be ServiceNow, for example. So from the ServiceNow console, we can see how the device is performing, how is the employee happy or not happy, what the employee is complaining about, how is the applications working, the security policies are met or not. All this is a console, and you can see it from ServiceNow as an ITSM or other ITSMs, or you can see it from the Nexthink console, Nexthink as a digital experience platform. Okay, so visibility is very important, and that's the starting point also of the proactive path. Okay, because obviously you cannot fix what you don't know, and it's very difficult to improve if you don't score. You need to know where you're starting from. You need to know if you are improving or not. So you need to measure. And that scoring that I mentioned is key to measure and see if you go in the right way or not. Okay, right direction. How do we do that visibility? So we are not monitoring on the different dimensions as before. We are not monitoring network or monitoring applications or monitoring cloud or monitoring device. That's already done. That's the IT perspective. That's good. It's needed. That's already there. Now what we add on the top of it is we monitor from the employee experience. And the IT team has a visibility of the employee experience. So we see exactly what the employee sees daily. So we monitor on this perspective through the entire cycle, end-to-end, from the user perspective, the device performance, navigation performance, private and public network performance, infrastructure, cloud, on-prem or cloud on-prem, web apps. We measure, but from the experience of the employee using all this end-to-end infrastructure, application, and so on. Okay, which gives a totally different way to see what's going on. Okay, Nexthink is doing that. Okay, Nexthink is doing that through collectors that are installed in the computer of each employee. Those collectors are basically monitoring everything going on from that employee perspective. Okay, could be virtual, could be session, could be the user experience, could be the network, everything, but on employee perspective. Okay, how is it done? We have collectors. It's like the kernel level collectors. So very low consumption, a few megs per day, very low consumption of network bandwidth, almost invisible for the users. That's a kernel level. It's not at the level of an application. So that's consume 0.something% of the resources of the computer. That's nothing, not visible at all. And that collector is one of the key data source to get the visibility of what's going on the computer. We are talking about 750 KPIs real time on the computer. Okay, when we say computer, it means the device itself, but means also everything around browser, so navigation on applications. Could be cloud applications, could be on-prem or on infrastructure applications. Could be the people side of things, the sentiment of the user. Okay, how do we capture the sentiment of the user? Through information that we show on the user real time based on the context of what they do. So it's not a survey. It's not something we send daily, weekly, when we close an incident. That's reactive again. Okay, that's planned or scheduled or reactive. That's not based on the context. If I'm a user, I'm an employee right now, I'm working on an application right now. This application is running slow. Because we are measuring it, we know that's running slow. But we are not waiting from the employee to go and open a ticket, because maybe they will never open a ticket. We detect with Nexthink, with the collector, we detect that the application is running slow. Proactively, we show maybe a pop-up on the computer of the employee, and we say, we see that the performance is not good in this application for you. We are detecting it. Here you have some advice, and maybe you publish some advice to the employee of what they should be doing, maybe to improve the performance of the application. Maybe it's because the Wi-Fi is not good, because whatever is, or maybe proxy things, settings are not standard. They're not using the browser that should be using, whatever. But we communicate to the user based on the context what they're doing. Another scenario, maybe it's not about performance, maybe another scenario about security. Let's say I have an employee that's opening a URL that's quite dangerous URL. So we detect that. I don't know, maybe a URL somewhere and they're downloading things from there. We can detect there's something dangerous occurring at a security perspective. So what can we do? We could go detect that and maybe show another pop-up on the screen, real time, based on the context. Do you know the risk of going to non-authorized domains in the internet? Look at our policy, security policy for browsing in the internet. Then maybe you show your policy and what you expect from the user also. Okay. Remember that the higher percentage of security issues are coming from the people side, not technology. People using the technology and how they use it. So it's another way that Nexthink can help. This is security perspective, not performance perspective, but it's another dimension we can help by monitoring the employee experience, employee devices. Okay, so all those data sources are giving us the visibility that we need to take decision. And then there is a people-centric platform when we have dashboards, scoring, querying. We can connect that with the ITSM or CMDBs or data lakes or AIOps solution. As I mentioned, ServiceNow is one of the most common we connect to because we are also partner of ServiceNow. The analytics is very important, AI. So Nexthink will guide you what you should be solving first to improve the experience of the employees. Okay, for example, if many employees have a very long time to log in into their computer, then maybe this is the first thing that AI will show of the first thing you should be solving. Okay? So those use cases are very key. So measuring the employee experience, minimizing the downtime by being more proactive, understanding what's going on before the ticket. For example, monitoring the experience with a slow response in an application, and maybe we can proactively remediate that and not waiting for a ticket to be raised. Increase the adoption by those engagement pop-ups that I mentioned, that we communicate with the employees based on the context of what they are doing on the screen. Reducing the risk, for example, with that example on security that I mentioned, with the domains that are maybe dangerous domains that are accessed by an employee. So basically, all this is where Nexthink can help, and across the different teams. Okay, so that could help the security team, that could help the IT operations teams, even the business side. We have dashboards of how their employees are, or how their employee experience is today. So they can see that in dashboards for business directly, maybe the head of the department. The support, the service desk, heavily working on the ITSM, but they can see everything from the ITSM, all the KPIs that Nexthink is collecting from the computers. Okay, so how do we do it? Monitoring 750, it's a bit more than 700 hard metrics on the device, and we have the analytics. Okay, measuring what's going on real time and the analytics about it. We score it out of 10. So business application dimension, network dimension, device dimension, productivity application, collaboration application, sentiment, all this combined together into a score, basically. And then engaging with the employee with the communication I mentioned, that's very important, real time. Okay, that communication can also automate remediation, that I will go to the third bullet here, which is automation. Because this is very good to have analytics, this is very good to have data, this is very good to have artificial intelligence that will guide us through the next step you should be executing. Maybe solve that login issue, solve that Teams communication issue. We have a lot of employees not happy with Teams, and we have a hard metric showing that Teams is running slow, and we have people sentiment that they are also saying that Teams is not working fine. I say Teams, but it could be Slack or Zoom or whatever we use. So that's good to have the analytics and the visibility, but that's even better if we can use that analytics and that AI prioritization and automate, self-remediation, remediate, solve it even before the employee knows that they have an issue, or solve it even they even open a ticket. Okay, that's the automation part, and that's where Nexthink can help, leveraging that the analytics and the dashboard that we have and the prioritization with the AI that I mentioned. There is a library of more than 100 remediation scripts already defined that you can trigger when the analytics detects an issue. So for example, if I have an issue with the login, there is a remediation script to remediate that. If I find an issue with Teams, there are remediation scripts to maybe roll back to the previous version of Teams. If there is a VPN connection issue, there are scripts to reconfigure VPN automatically. There are many scripts, more than 100, that are already built, mostly in PowerShell, that you can use. Just download and use. Okay. But then you can just create your own, because maybe in your organization we detect a use case that's specific, that's not maybe something that I will find in another organization. So we can create a remediation script for your scenario. So next time we detect one of the employees with that issue, we have two options. We can communicate to the employee. That's good always to communicate. We find this issue that it's running slow. But it's even better if we can say to the employee, and we've already solved it for you. So that should never happen again. So the employee, they never even go to open a ticket and nothing. They just say, hey, that's running a bit slow today. And they see from IT communication. They see from IT automated resolution. That's proactivity. That's a big difference, right? And the even bigger difference is if you detect that on one employee, maybe you have another 200 laptops with the same configuration. We know from the analytics. We know because we have collectors in the laptops. So let's apply the same solution to the other 100 laptops. Maybe they never faced the issue yet, but if we found it in one laptop and the other 100 at the same configuration, we should apply the same to the other 100. If we do that, it's even more proactive even because the employee, they never faced the issue yet. Okay, so that's all about productivity. Productivity is about visibility, it's about people and making sure to change the mindset, visibility, and then automation through those scripts, and then you can create your own scripts if you need to. Okay, so that shows a clear ROI. Why? And there are calculators to show that. Because basically what we are doing here, we are reducing drastically the amount of tickets that are raised, the amount of incidents that are managed, and that allow your IT team to focus on improvement and not, firefighting. Okay, so that makes a big difference on the ROI. Saving hours, saving cost of service desk and all levels of support, but also the hours of that you cannot do more valuable things. If you are daily doing firefighting, then obviously you're doing less projects, new services not a lot of new services are deployed and things like that. Let's focus the hours on more valuable outcome. Okay. All those remediation and scripts that are automatically triggered and to self, it's like self-healing, right? You can also trigger it or launch it from the ITSM. So for example, if you use ServiceNow or other ITSM that works with almost all ITSM platforms, you can see from your screen in ServiceNow, for example, as a service desk person, maybe, I can see the KPI from Nexthink, the reality of what's going on for a user. But you can also click and remediate directly from ServiceNow. So it could be reconfigure the VPN or reinstall the previous version of Teams. You click and that will do it automatically. So it's proactive, or it's also helping service desk if we get to a reactive mode that we have a ticket, but still we can automate and go quicker for the resolution. Okay, that's all about the automation. So how we do it, that library of more than 100 remediation scripts, and ensuring that the self-remediation is also fully integrated with the ITSM. Okay, that's all part of Nexthink, so all standard. An example, this is one of the customer without name. It's a around 2,000 employees. So it's not large, it's a medium organization, 2,000 employees. What we've done is we've made an analysis only on the tickets. So we've made an analysis on the reactive approach they were following. Right? We analyze all the tickets from 1 year related to the workplace. Okay, so it was a ServiceNow ITSM. So we extract, let's say, all the workplace incident from 2021 closed. We've done an analysis and we found out that 6,500 of those incidents could have been automated thanks to Nexthink automation. Okay, 6,000 incident automated meant 11,000 hours that we could have saved in 1 year with Nexthink automation. Okay, we translate that into euros here. could be euros, dollar, whatever we want to translate to. That's just hours that the value of the hours that we can save through the automation. Okay, but as I said before, it's not all about what you save, it's what you stop doing if you are doing manual resolution. Okay, so the value could be a lot higher than that if we look at what we should have done saving this amount of hours. I think there's maybe 3 or 4 big projects you can run with 11,000 hours. Okay, so you should have maybe run several projects with those hours. And then there are also the hours on the business side, so on the employee side, because obviously when we have an incident, the incident has an impact on the productivity of the employee. So those are the hours that we analyzed that were lost by the employee due to those incidents, 8,000 hours. So if we put a value on that also, the same as before, this is just the value of the hours that we can save for the employee. So we increment the productivity if we can save those hours, okay? But same, this value could be a lot higher if we think about what they can produce with those hours, okay? So it's like 500K euros a year, just the value of the hours of people, IT and employee, okay? And that's just looking at the reactive scenario. So just 50% of the incident, you remember? 45% of the incidents are not reported. So we have almost half of the incidents are not reported. So what we analyzed on the previous slide is just half of the reality, okay? If we look at the reality of the entire incident in the workplace, that's double than this, okay? Due to this fact that half are not reported, okay? So we'll be talking already about million here instead of 500K. It's just the value of the hours. The outages that are faced, the minutes that we lose, all this is not taken into account in the figures because all this cannot be measured if we don't have a ticket. And that's the limit of the reactive mode. That's why, remember at the beginning, I've showed that graph where you get a lot of value at the beginning and then less and less value. It's more and more difficult to increment the value we give as IT because we're still reactive. So we are the best reactive as possible, but we're still reactive. To change that, we need to change as proactive, as I mentioned today, with visibility, with automation, and with that digital experience monitoring that I mentioned. Okay.